Welcome back, you filthy ARPG players. I thought I'd do a video on this as being somebody who puts together build guides and whatnot of that likes. And I've noticed a lot of videos that have come out with like D4 like class reviews. And I'm gonna go down the same path that Quinn went down in the video that he put up yesterday around another video that was released recently. And it's as somebody who puts together builds. I want to talk to the amount of, I'd debatably say, bait content that's coming out. And I've got a few key points that realistically, when I guess we put builds together, we consider when it comes to actually looking at whether a character is viable or not. So I've watched a lot of like hardline videos around like mechanics and the crafting system and itemization. Basically, simplistically, you can take a rare and you can apply a legendary craft to a rare item. That's about as complicated as the changes get with D4 that we're at, from everything that I've seen so far. Is it revolutionary? And I hope this pisses a lot of people off. It's not revolutionary, to be honest with you. That system's in Path of Exile already, and that's called Mastercrafting. Anyway, so I guess this video is just to sort of call out the fact that, like, if you want to play a class like a barbarian, druid, a necromancer, whatever, like, it's realistically going to be at this stage down to your playstyle and what you feel like playing, because there's a number of things that we just don't know about the game until you actually play it. And I think factually the only thing that you can realistically review at this stage is the content in the dev diary updates that's come out, and speculating about how systems will work will lead us down the same path of how we've went with putting out, for example, build guides for Path of Exile before patch notes, and then finding out that holy shit, everything is fucked and or nerfed and or the meta's completely changed, or your expectations versus reality are two completely different things. And then basically you have people that will maybe pre-plan before the early access comes out for D4 in that case, and just will have their hopes and dreams shattered, because what they'll find is the skill is actually shit and still requires balancing for it to be workable. But if you've got like 30 videos of people like spouting that that's the meta, then you're going to set people up to fail, and that's going to detract them from having any fun in the game. And I know, like, I've watched some videos where they've went, oh, you know, you're not going to be able to follow build guides and things like that for D4. But here's the sticky reality, right? You will be able to follow build guides. It's not going to be hard to follow a build guide with Diablo 4. And the reason being is the skill tree setup's really simplistic. The skill system's really simplistic compared to things like Diablo, compared to Path of Exile, sorry. What's going to realistically happen is everybody's going to mastercraft rares into legendaries, and then pretty much every item that you can have a legendary affix on, you're going to apply that and convert to legendary. And basically, there's going to be crafting methodologies that are not going to be complicated in any way, shape, or form that are going to come out, which is going to guide people on how to basically mastercraft endgame builds. And we're going to end up in the same position that we're in with D3. Now, the other thing we don't know, and this is something that we found out the hard way with Path of Exile going back 2 patches, was we also don't know what drop rates are. So maybe we won't all be running around with legendary items, or maybe we will be running around and putting legendary items and everything the same way that we've done in Diablo 3 in particular. And we just don't know that information. And I guess this video is to calm expectations just a little bit and bring it down a pitch. A lot of the fucking videos I'm seeing is like high volume views and stuff like that. And people are really thirsty at these times when a new game like Diablo 4 is coming out, to basically try and find out as much information as you should. What I'd probably say is, and I'll pull it up on screen in a moment, is look at the wikis and get a bit of an idea of what skills are there that might synergize, and the talent trees and whatnot. But at this stage, there's just not enough information to be able to discern what is a good Like, is the rogue gonna be actually good? Like, it could be trash, and the barbarian might actually be more balanced in defense and offense. maybe the druid has better AoE clear, and maybe that's a way to approach the game based on the content and based on the dungeon system and whatnot. And realistically, the only people that are going to know that are people who have actually already played the game. Generally, when I look at builds, I'll play through and level them from start point to really get a feel for how the character feels. There might be entire skills that aren't balanced yet that just don't work. And the early access might tease that out. And so we will get a combination of people that will watch a lot of the videos that are out that are saying, hey, these are all these great builds and why you should play this, and why you should play Necromancer and whatever. But the Necromancer could just be hot garbage, and we might find that, you know, again, the Druid's just the GOAT. Like, that's the problem. There's no technical numbers. There's no real analytical data for us to use to work off of. We don't fully understand the defense system yet. We don't know how hard the content's actually going to be. There's a lot of unknowns, and I guess I'm just putting a video like this up to go, hey, let's just wind it back a few steps. Let's play the game on the weekend and get a feel for it. And that's when content should be made, is when we physically have content to work off of, or we have dev updates or some type of tangible information to actually anchor on. Not just a few things we've seen in marketing content and material, and then we pump out like 30 videos to try and get people to append onto that content. And then you basically set expectations up here when reality sits down here. Realistically, you know, you're over-promising, and then what happens is an under-delivery, and then people tend to backlash and get upset. Anyway, let's get into the video and go through a few points you should look for when you're considering like what you want to play, and I guess some things to think about when you're putting together your builds and whatnot for D4. And that being said, you're only going to get to level 25 in the early access and the open beta. So you're really not going to know how a build works until you get it to like that 75% point, when you start to get a power spike and you know it's actually going to work. Okay, so the first thing that I tend to look at when I'm looking at things for, in particular, D4. Now, I was thinking of putting up videos about possible build combinations and stuff like that, and I thought better of it. Detrimental to the channel, yes, but also it's not putting out content that is going to be clickbait with information that I'm not 100% or not even 10% sure of at this stage. So the skill system, and this is a Fextra Life Barbarian Skills web, like this is a wiki that is up for Fextra Life, which pulls in a lot of information around D4 and whatnot, to sort of compilate it so you can go and have a look and see what works with what. Now, the first thing to understand is, like, you've got a resource generating skill, which will generally be your left click. And then you've got your secondary skill, which will be your, you know, your whatever, your more offensive skill that you're going to use more often when you generate your resource, and that's going to be your right click. Then you'll have a defensive skill, a utility skill. You know, there's what, 4 other skill sockets you have, so 6 skills in total that you can run. Now, there are synergies, and I started looking at this last week to sort of go, okay, how do all these things fit together and whatnot? There are certain synergies in the prelim information that we sort of have available to us that indicate that, for example, like there's a number of skills on the Barbarian that have a lot of stacking with bleed. So we look at Rend, we look at Flay, all have bleeding procs. And then we have, whoa, what else have we got? And you can pretty much see like Rupture, again, more bleed, skewering enemies and inflicting bleed. And then we've also got Iron Maelstrom, right? So there are skill sets that have synergies. And so that could indicate that it could be really good, a really good configuration on the Barbarian. As you'll notice what I'm doing right now, I'm not telling you what class to play, because you should play what class you feel like playing, what you feel will be fun. That everybody has a different proclivity, and also at any point in time, you might feel like playing a Necromancer, you might feel like playing a Barbarian. It just depends on how you feel. So for videos saying which skill is going to be best and whatever, it's also going to depend what you want to get out of it. What I'd say in the open beta is play anything that you think will be cool and fun and see if it works. Realistically, in Diablo, it's probably going to work. Path of Exile is a very different game comparatively, and yeah, you can fuck up pretty quickly in Path of Exile. But in Diablo, what is your oyster? Like, the game is more casual, and there'll be people that'll watch this video that won't like that comment, but let's be real here. We're talking about Path of Exile having a population base of like 200,000, 300,000 players, right? At peak on League Start. Whereas Diablo is probably going to have 1,000,000 plus. Like, hands down. It's got a bigger audience, a bigger population of players. And so the game's going to be watered down to attack that and market to that audience here, i.e. look at Diablo Immortal. Like, super profitable, highly predatory, has an absolutely monstrous player base because it's really simplistic in nature and has a real ease of access into the game. It's what you would call accessible from, content wise. It guides you through to the point where you can actually latch on and progress, and then that endorphin kick kicks in. There's no like hurdle or wall you have to overcome. It just continually feeds you content until it gets to a very later end wall where you have to start either paying to progress, or you don't progress at all, or you progress very slowly based on your amount of playtime. D4 is not going to be very dissimilar to that. Diablo 3 is exactly the same in that nature. Basically, in D3, you would basically get in, pick a build you want to play, go with that until you can farm up set pieces out of rifts, and then do greater rifts, and then just continue to push up the higher grift system and continue to progress that way. So it's really basic. And like, honestly, like, you can get a whole build working in D3 in one day. Now, D4 is probably not going to be that short on the list, but it's not going to be far from that. Like, certain builds in Path of Exile, depending on how long you've been playing, and, some people say, like, why are you drawing so many comparisons to Path of Exile? Like, that's the best comparison to make when you look at Diablo 4 in the marketplace right now. That's more apples to apples than anything else. You might not get your build working for like 4 weeks because you have to get currency, and then the gear might not be on the market and whatever. D4 is just going to be go in, farm dungeons. It's probably going to drop. There's probably going to be a specificity of drop based on your character type. So barbarians are probably going to have a higher probability to drop barbarian based uniques and whatnot, similar again to Diablo 3. And so, but you're going to have a pool that you're going to get unique drops out of, and again, we don't know what the drop rate is yet, or the magic find rate, or whatever you want to call it. So we don't know the frequency of those drops. So who's to say they're not build enabling, or they are going to be build enabling? I would probably say they're probably going to be build enabling. And watching Quinn's video yesterday, he's bang on with the comment. Everyone's probably going to be ticking around with legendary items after the first week when the game comes out. The guys that are like really shit bucketing the game and just playing non-stop, they're the guys that are going to have all legendary items. And that's realistically where we're going to end up with the game. I just don't see Diablo 4 having a crafting system and or itemization system that's anywhere near as robust as Path of Exile in any way, shape, or form, because to achieve that would be losing a market share. And everything I'm saying is just applying a modicum of common sense here. So anyway, looking at skills when you're looking at characters that you want to play or character setups, you're looking in particular for D4 for skills that have synergistic sort of elements. So if you're going to play a bleed character, you want to go for all skills that are going to be bleed. If you're going to play a bash and kick character, which honestly looks really cool, then you're going to go for like flat physical damage skills like leap, kick. You might go ground slam, whatever, and then you're looking for synergies that feed between those elements. So off the back of what we were talking about just before, where we have different skills, basic skills. So it's broken down into basic, fury, defensive, brawling, weapon mastery, and ultimates, right? So if you were going to play a barbarian and you were looking at putting together a build, and this is what comes to mind when I think about this, so I'd look for skills that would have bleed proc, they would have flay, and then I would go back to the passive tree and go, okay, what passives or talents we're going to call, well, that's what they're called in Diablo 4. What talents exist that proc, more bleed? So hamstrung is going to apply more bleed. Cut to the bone applies more bleed. It very much looks like bleed dot is a real focus point for barbarian. We've got ultimate talents, which, where are we? Wallop. So there's nothing here that scales further bleed at that point. And mastery, we have gushing wounds, which applies killing a bleeding enemy creates an explosion. That applies more bleed AoE damage from what I can see to other enemies around. That's sort of what I would expect that to do. Basically, when you're putting together builds for Diablo 4, this is the synergies that you initially have to look at. And the missing link for all of this right now is we don't know what the weaponization system is going to realistically be, how easy it's going to be to craft. For example, I'm going to pick on bleed. We don't know how easy bleed is going to be able to be crafted onto items. We don't know how accessible that is. We don't know if there's just simply going to be a unique item that's going to do crazy levels of bleed damage. There's just not enough information to be able to go, hey, Bleed Barbarian is a solid playstyle, so you should play this. And that's currently where I have issues with seeing, like, the Necromancer's going to be the best playstyle, or the Bloody Druid's going to be the best playstyle, because realistically, without being able to tether that information together to basically create, okay, you need these items, you need these skills, and you need these talents. I don't know how you can recommend a particular playstyle over another, and then aside from that, we don't even know if Bleed is going to actually be good. It could be absolutely atrocious. And so you'd be like, nah, fuck that, I'm not going to play a Bleed build because it's just horrible. So these are some of the things that, like, I think about when I see, number one, videos recommending different builds or so-called builds. And then number two, I see, yeah, it's just really bait at this stage. Like, what I'd probably say is just, you could watch those videos to get an idea of what the endgame mechanics might look like, and what we've seen so far is probably going to aberrantly change to what it will be in the endpoint, and what actually comes out on final release is still quite a few months for things to change. And then early access is when you really get a chance to actually test what you're going to be playing, or just test the game out. I wouldn't be watching a video and saying what build you should play, and then going into early access and go, okay, I'm going to be a Chad and I'm going to be number one on the leaderboard or whatever. I'd be playing the early access for what it is, early access, to get an idea of how does the game feel, how does the character movement feel, how does the mechanics of the skills feel, how does it feel to just basically getting a lay of the land for the actual game. And then from there, that's the foundation for going, okay, potentially these are the skills that are going to be meta. And so then what you would do is then you would drill down and test on those skills and go, okay, this is a really good skill, this is not a good skill, or this is not a good class, this class outweighs the next one. But realistically, the way that I see D4, and you can be upset or not, is it's not going to be very dissimilar to D3 and D2. And the crafting mechanics and even the world system, it doesn't really separate. Like, it's different. It's just a different take on systems that have been done in other games, or amalgamating what's in MMOs across ARPGs. I don't think it's revolutionary. I think it's just a different interpretation of other systems, like Lost Ark has a lot of those systems. It's an ARPG that's an MMO, be it that it's monetized. Like, what is really separating Lost Ark from Diablo 4 in this case, it's not a great deal. Like, it's the same type of world system, world bosses, and all that sort of shit. So I think people are just stuck in a hype train right now with Diablo 4, as opposed to really looking at it for what it is. It's just a really cool Diablo game and an ARPG. And then, yeah, you should, where I'm going with this is you should basically pick builds that are going to be fun to play. Don't pick builds because somebody said it's going to be the best build in early access based on half-scuffed information that we know nothing about, and we have no patch notes on, we have no actual numerical information to prove, hey, this is going to be good or bad. Anyway, that's my rant about what I've seen so far in videos. It just seems like that a lot of people are putting up a lot of hype videos right now. I think, and I watched Zisrin's video he put up, I think he's bang on with his assessment there. Is we've been stung so many times with games like Diablo Immortal, with the different ARPGs that have come out over the years, that realistically, I think lowering your expectations just a bit, like I pre-ordered it, like everybody else has probably pre-ordered it. I'm pretty keen for it, I'm excited, but I'm also not going to put out a video every second day saying, hey guys, this is an unbelievable system and this is crazy and rah rah rah. Because the reality is, I don't sort of see making content in that way as being very informative, number one. And number two, the idea is to keep it real basically and just go, okay, like critically analyze the game and go, what works in it, what doesn't work. Does it look like it's going to be a D3 similar-ish game? Is it too casual? Is it too hardcore? Is it better than Path of Exile, or do I prefer Path of Exile still, or maybe I prefer D2 Resurrected? Like these are some of the things that you should consider when you play it, and not just play it because the hype trains, or not just watch videos and go, this is going to be revolutionary. Just like critically analyze things and don't listen to absolutely everything that you see on YouTube, because a lot of people like to use pretty colors and loud voices and well scripted videos, but at the end of the day, if it's a bad game, it's a bad game. If it puts a predatory monetization system in, then basically nobody's going to play it. It's going to go the same way as Diablo Immortal with the, I guess, more PC based community. And so it's really like, we'll see what it looks like, take it for what it is and just build on that. But yeah, just don't get too hyped up. You should be excited. It's another new cool ARPG to play, but I just don't see it being the revolution that some people are pitching it to be. And I thought I'd just put a video up just to sort of share my thoughts on the whole Diablo 4 coming out situation. Like, I'm absolutely going to be working towards build guides and whatnot for it, but I'm not like getting pumped through the roof and like fist bumping going, yeah, it's fucking party time, Diablo 4's out. I did that with Diablo 3 and I was like wildly disappointed back when it first came out. I was like, Diablo Day! And then it came out and it was what it was. It was an average game at best. Anyway, that's all from me. I'll probably heavily edit this video to make it more cohesive. But anyway, until next time, like and sub to the video. There'll be plenty of PoE content coming out, and also Last Epoch content coming out moving forwards as well, just for a little bit of a change up. But until next time, have a good one, and bye.